All righty, a good Friday afternoon to you. See, now I don't have to worry about this morning into afternoon thing. The show begins at noon, so yes, it's always going to be good afternoon. Good Friday afternoon to all of you. It is the Chico Borman Show, and it is right here on the Big Play Sports Network. We are just geeked to have you along. Certainly today was a very special day. Earlier, we debuted the Matt Fontana Show. Matt, as we knew he would, did a fantastic job. You will hear Matt 9 to 11 here on Big Play, and of course also on iHeartRadio. You will also hear the live version of Matt Fontana and myself right now, noon to 2, but then you'll also get a replay. Fontana's replay will be 4 to 6 on iHeartRadio. Just download the app, and our show, the Chico Borman Show, will be replayed 7 to 9. So, Warden McAllister. Now, there has been a bit of a sacrifice made, Boom, because we've had a lot of this, the technological advances. Warden McAllister's golf game has suffered a little bit. His handicap has gone up a few strokes, and I don't feel bad for him at all. Now, if he was like a hacker and he was starting to really shave some strokes, but we're talking about like a guy that's probably about a 4 or 5. He's actually a little bit worse than that, but all I know is he's much better than me, which isn't saying a whole lot. So if he's, worsened a little bit, then so be it. But anyway, we've got so much going on. Obviously, it's Football Friday. It is football is here, as we all know. Last night, game 1 of the season. How about them Lions? Doesn't sound like the Cowboys, but how about them Lions? Good for Dan Campbell. And I know people are going to say, like, and already have said, well, Travis Kelce didn't play, Chris Jones didn't play, they should have. Well, okay, maybe that's true, but you know what? They had to take care of business on the road, and they did. And I thought they looked pretty good doing it. Would it have been a different story? Possibly. But I love Campbell after the game. Like, hey, what did you see from your team? What did you learn from your team? He goes, I didn't learn anything. I just got confirmation. Like, that's why these guys want to play for him. That's why they want to run through a wall for him. But the Lions win. I don't think anybody's worried in Kansas City. Chris Jones, I mentioned this yesterday. Chris Jones is to the defense what Travis Kelce is to the offense. That Montgomery touchdown, well blocked by the Lions O-line, but Chris Jones, you're guessing, is going to be right in the middle of that sort of thing. But I thought a great opening night. And not for everybody. Kadarius Toney. We was actually the subject of a fantasy question. George Pickens or Kadarius Toney. I said Pickens in what I texted back to him. And then EK yesterday, and I think Toney was the right call, especially with Kelce out. But, you got to hang on to the ball, son. You got to catch the ball, son.
He certainly got his targets. EK talked about targets. They were there.
Yeah, he got his targets. He just couldn't corral them. And
he's kind of a wild card of a player. On and off the field, there have been some questions with him. Obviously, love the talent.
Yeah.
But he hasn't really delivered consistently to this point in his career.
Yeah. So that was one that, for my guy, I think it was Layla's dad on Twitter who said, do I go Pickens or do I go Kadarius Toney? I hope he went Pickens. Toney, if he could hang on to the ball, he would have put up a nice little stat line, but that was not the case. All right. we get to the news at hand and the task at hand, and of course the Browns and the Bengals. Just yesterday we had James Rapino on the show from down in Cincinnati, and he was saying that, yeah, hey, if you don't get the deal done by Sunday, not going to be a good look for the Bengals, which I think I agreed with, we all agreed with. And just hours later, Joe Burrow signs a 5-year, $275 million extension with $219 million of that guaranteed. So Joey Burrow is a rich man. Bohm already had a man crush on him. Now he's got an even bigger man crush on him because now he's really, really rich. I do think it's funny when people like, wow, it's a lot of pressure on Burrow for Sunday. Like, I don't think any of that really matters for Joe Burrow. I mean, yeah, he wanted to get paid. I mean, obviously. But in terms of Sunday's game, no. Now, in terms of Sunday's game for the Browns, a couple things to pass along. They are on the practice field now. Yesterday, and I guess this would have happened on Wednesday, Juan Thornhill, the free agent acquisition coming over from Kansas City, Juan Thornhill apparently has a calf injury. I don't think it's that serious, but he missed practice yesterday, also missed practice today, or at least is not on the practice field as they begin practice over in Berea. That's something to keep our eye on. The other thing, Denzel Ward did practice yesterday. He was limited, but he is also back on the practice field today. So that also very, very good news for the Browns. But again, with Thornhill, we'll just kind of wait and see how this thing plays out as we get closer and closer to Sunday. I'm sure erring on the side of caution, but again, anytime, your secondary in this day and age, in any day and age, but your secondary in this day and age is very important. Your secondary is vitally important when you're facing Joey Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and all that comes with that. So hopefully they're going to have their full complement of DBs on the field, but we'll keep our eye on that. One thing, and I know I mentioned this, and we're going to talk to Bill Landis from Rivals and Dotting the I's. He's going to join us talking Buckeyes here in about 10 minutes. Last week, some things to clean up before Youngstown State. Yeah, I know he's there. We'll talk to him here in a little bit at 12:15. We're going to bring him in. But one thing that I wanted to touch on, and I felt like, because I had a conversation with somebody yesterday, and it was somebody who was upset about the preseason rankings. Or not the preseason rankings, the NFL, they do the power polls there, and, who's predictions now are out. Predictions have been coming out all summer, but now, if you're subscribed to SI or, everybody's got the predictions. And guess what, folks? The Browns are not on many people's lists when it comes to playoff teams. And, I mean, for me personally, I don't really get into that stuff. I mean, I do like to look at it, to read it. Certainly these days for show purposes, it's good. But I don't really get, unless somebody's like, wow, the Browns, they'll be lucky to win 4 games. It doesn't really catch my eye. But fans have been very, very, observant, we'll say. And they're not happy about this. And I'm telling you, embrace it. Like, embrace it. The last 2 years, the Browns have been big disappointments for a variety of different reasons. Last year, we know, Deshaun Watson had the suspension, and he missed 11 games. And, it was really drama and chaos right from the very beginning. The year before, there was a ton of expectations because the year before that was a playoff victory. Yes, I said a playoff victory over the Pittsburgh Steelers, and you're thinking, well, this team can go nowhere but up. But they did not go up. They went down, and they've stayed down there, again, for a variety of reasons. So now, you've got a lot of the experts that have basically said, okay, look, yeah, the Browns are talented, but I'm not going to pick them for the playoffs. One, because I want to see something from them. And two, oh, by the way, the AFC is absolutely loaded. And I think that's fair. I mean, I'm not saying you have to like it, but you have to accept that that's reality right now. But I'm also saying embrace it. You don't want to be I don't know. I mean, if you are that relevant where you're on everybody's lists of the best teams, well, then you've gotten to a point where that kind of stuff, that noise doesn't bother you and is not going to affect you one way or the other, good or bad. That's why you are where you are. But if you're a team like the Browns and you haven't lived up to expectations lately, and since '99 it's been horrible, I'm fine. Embrace being under that radar. Embrace the fact that, guys and gals around the league, around the country are saying, show me. Because you know what? They do need to show you. They do need to show you. They need to show you beginning Sunday. So we'll get into this a little bit more in the second hour. Nick Shook is going to join me from NFL.com, our good buddy. And we got a programming announcement with Nick. But I'll tell you what, Bill Landis waiting patiently. I know he's got a very, very busy schedule. And so as we get ready, the Buckeyes, I should say, get ready, and we all get ready. We're always getting ready for the Youngstown State Penguins. There is no days off when it comes to the Penguins from Youngstown State. And Bill Landis joins us, he, of course, with Rivals dotting the I's. I was catching some of the podcasts, Bill. You and it was you, Bohm's boy Berm, and Austin Ward. It got to the point where Austin Ward was predicting Chip Trainum to throw a touchdown pass to Kyle McCord. You guys are getting delusional over there in Columbus. What's going on, buddy?
Yeah, I wouldn't put myself in that camp. I think Austin is on an island with that one. I will not be predicting any position players to be throwing touchdowns this week, but it certainly should be a game where I think Ohio State's players, at the very least, can build a little bit of confidence coming out of an opener where the offense looked a little sluggish.
Yeah, you hope this is one of those games where, and again, no disrespect to Youngstown State, but the talent, the roster, everything is totally the opposite. So I mean, you're looking at Ohio State. Hopefully, they can get off to a great start, and I think, best case scenario, they get off to a 28-0 start in the first quarter. Kyle McCord looks good. I know Devin Brown's going to play, but Kyle McCord looks good. Marvin Harrison Jr. got nicked up last week. More on that. But he has, a few touchdowns, and then those guys just sit, right? I mean, that's probably the best case scenario for tomorrow afternoon at the Horseshoe.
Yeah, that would be ideal. I do think the starting offensive line, regardless of what this game looks like, probably needs to play a lot or longer than you perhaps would play them otherwise, because they just need to continue to gel. But I think a lot of those skill guys, the receivers in particular, can hopefully be out of the game early if you're Ohio State. There's probably a delicate balance there too with Kyle McCord and Devin Brown. Like, Kyle will start. They want to play Devin. That was the same talking line as last week. I actually think it'll happen this week. But Kyle needs snaps too, so I could see him perhaps playing a little bit longer than the rest of the offensive starters. You probably get into your running back depth a little bit in this game, and hopefully play some young guys on defense too who have not played a whole lot. But yeah, it should be. It's weird, right? Like I don't know how often Ohio State wants to be playing FCS teams. We were talking to some people after practice on Wednesday asking, like, is this a waste of time? And they're like, oh, well, we'll see after the fact, I guess. But I do think there's something to be said for just like going out there, playing well, feeling good about yourself. But I don't know that this will really tell us much about Ohio State.
Okay, so you're a guy not only sitting up there in the press box, but I've always enjoyed over the years you breaking down film and going over stuff. So we had a lot of reaction and overreaction, and I'll be honest, I said to Bohm and everybody else out there that, I'm not going to say that Kyle McCord was terrible, but he certainly, well, let's use Ryan Day's line. He didn't exactly blow it out of the water. And then to your point, the offensive line was really only one guy I thought played well. It was just, there's a lot that needs to be cleaned up. Let's start on the offensive side of the ball. What needs to be cleaned up going back and looking at that film against Indiana?
Yeah, I mean, a lot. I guess I would say that the offensive line, I did feel like got a little better as that game went on, but that happens sometimes with Ohio State. I just think teams don't have the depth of talent, or most teams they play don't have the depth of talent to continue to come at them in waves. So by the fourth quarter, you tend to see, or third and fourth quarter, you tend to see Ohio State's offensive line start to take over, sort of regardless of how a game starts. And I did think that happened a little bit, but the first half was pretty bad. Among the worst performances I think I've seen from an Ohio State offensive line. Just like frankly not figuring out who they were supposed to block, which is sort of step one, I guess. Get to where you're supposed to be, and then we'll talk about it after how you did. And they couldn't really get there sometimes. And Kyle McCord was fine. He didn't blow anybody out of the water. Like, certainly didn't play well enough. I thought that Devin Brown should have been relegated to just 2 series and a handful of plays. One of those series was basically in garbage time at the end of the game. I don't know how much of the offensive struggles I pin on Kyle. He definitely had opportunities to throw the ball down the field, and he didn't take them. That's probably a byproduct of some protection issues they were having early. So I don't know where they go from here. I don't know what to make of the quarterback competition. I tried to ask Ryan Day about that earlier this week, and I found his answer, I guess, a bit confusing in its open-endedness. But I think there are things they can do this week. Like I think you want to see them just move an inferior opponent around and get some stuff going in the run game, get some of those vertical hits in the passing game that were missing last week. Get a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr. in the end zone. Get a Egbuka in the end zone. Let Kyle and Devin, I think, kind of show whatever the strengths of their game are against a team that shouldn't be prepared to stop it.
Any health concerns right now for Marvin Harrison Jr.?
Not that we're aware of. He was wearing the yellow non-contact jersey coming off the practice field on Wednesday night, but he still practiced from everything that we saw and heard. Okay. So, and it's not surprising to see him in that jersey coming off of getting dinged up a little bit against Indiana. I think ideally they would like to play him very little in this game, and maybe that's get him a few touches early, hopefully get him in the end zone, maybe on your first 2 drives or something like that, and then get him out of the game. So nothing that I'm concerned about. He came back and played against Indiana, right? So I think that tells you enough about where he is. But I don't think you want to needlessly expose him to potentially getting hit on that shoulder again in this game if you don't have to.
Bill Landis is joining us talking Ohio State. Buckeyes get set to take on Youngstown State tomorrow at noon at the Horseshoe. One guy that I thought did play very, very well last week in Bloomington, Bill, was tight end Cade Stover. I thought he looked outstanding against the Hoosiers.
Yeah, he had a good game receiving. He was their leading receiver, which I probably would not have guessed in that game. I thought his blocking from time to time was a little inconsistent, especially when they tried to get him in space, which was an issue for him last year. But solid game, I think, overall. And it's nice to know, and granted, it's a 1-game sample size, so I don't want to make too much of it. But if you encounter a team that is going to really sell out to kind of bracket Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Egbuka and take those guys away as much as they can, which is what Indiana tried to do. If you have a security blanket in Cade Stover, who you can not only trust to just simply catch the ball over the middle of the field, but also do a little something with it after the catch, which we saw him do a few times against Indiana too, then I think that becomes a weapon for you. It's something else for defenses to have to worry about. And, in a pick your poison world, you're probably picking Marvin Harrison Jr. to cover 10 times out of 10 when it's pick him or Cade Stover. But I do think that perhaps early on here, the tight end position could become more involved as a receiving threat than it's been at Ohio State.
Bill, on the other side of the ball on defense, I thought they played well, very well, some of them, and I also thought that there really wasn't much. If you wanted to see the secondary tested, you didn't really get a chance to see that against Indiana. And it sounded like Jim Knowles kind of agreed. He was very happy with the way his guys played. But in terms of, getting some guys tested, you didn't really see a whole lot out of Indiana, correct?
Yeah, that's right. I guess the thing I would say to that is the few times they were tested, they kind of stepped up to the spot and performed well. The cornerbacks did. But Indiana ran triple option, basically, which no one was expecting. Jim Knowles said they had practiced it for 3 plays. So I guess that's encouraging on one hand, right? That they weren't really prepared for it. They saw it right away and didn't really blink and did a pretty good job of smothering it from the jump. I think it ended up being the second fewest yards per play allowed by Ohio State's defense under Jim Knowles since he got here last year. So it was fine. They did exactly what they had to do. It wasn't a game where I don't think guys were going to necessarily pop off the screen at you, but if to a man, they played pretty well. I think they had 12 guys or so grayed out as champions, which means they had like adequate or above performance in that game. So that was good to see. Like, and there were times last year where teams could have run the ball on them a little bit, right? So and Indiana's not the stiffest test in the world, I suppose, but Ohio State kind of had that bottled up, and we'll see. Like, I'm curious. Jim Knowles is curious about what this is going to look like when they play more conventional offenses that are going to drop back and throw the ball more. Can the pass rush get home? Can the safeties play disciplined? Can the corners make disruptive plays on the ball and perhaps even get some interceptions that they didn't get last year? So all those questions remain, but even, despite that, I still thought that was a very solid start for this defense.
Yeah, and they might not see that against Youngstown State, but they could see that against Western Kentucky, who likes to put it in the air. So that's good, especially as you're preparing for Notre Dame here in a couple weeks. Yeah, I thought Proctor played very well. Sonny Styles, I mean, we talked about him before, and the athleticism. I mean, he had a play where, I mean, he's on one side of the field, and you're thinking just for him to get over there and be in the neighborhood, in the area code, would be something. But he goes and he makes the play. Like, he is just, we talk about the freakish athlete, and I know maybe we overuse it sometimes, but I mean, that kid is special. Josh Proctor played a great game. I thought those two guys really stood out on that side of the ball.
Yeah, I would agree with you. It turned out, I think, to be a pretty good game for what suits Josh Proctor the best, and that is a game where he can just sort of fly downhill from the safety position and make plays near the line of scrimmage.
Yep.
I still have a lot of questions about how he'd fare against teams that put the ball in the air more, but it's not his fault that Indiana decided to keep the ball on the ground that entire game, and he played well given the circumstances. Sonny, I thought, was excellent. That play you're talking about was like a Jets or a reverse maybe to the opposite side of the field where Sonny was covering a guy in the slot, and that guy goes in motion, gets the ball, ends up trying to run on the wide side of the field, and Sonny basically ran the play with him the entire way and shut it down. He had a few plays in the backfield. And he also had a play where he kind of missed a tackle and then came back right on the next one and got a tackle for loss, I think. So it was nice to see him kind of flush a bad play and bounce back with another kind of splash play. So I guess I have similar questions about Sonny too. Like, what's going to happen when they play a team that might have a more difficult matchup in the slot for Sonny to cover from time to time. He didn't really have to do a whole lot of that against Indiana, and that's sort of the lingering question with wanting to play him at the nickel position as a guy who's 6'4" and 225 pounds. He basically got to play linebacker against Indiana. So let's see him play some safety and see where this can go. But the thing that was probably most encouraging was if you were a person like me who wants to see Sonny Styles on the field sort of no matter what, I think Ohio State only took him off the field once. So that was good to see.
Bill Landis joining us, a few more minutes with him, again covering the Buckeyes as he has for many years now. Follow him on Twitter if you're not already, at Bill Landis25. Catch him on the podcast with Austin Ward and Jeremy Birmingham and Doug Maurice as well. By the way, I wanted to say in that episode, and hopefully we've got, because we love Berm here. We had him on the one time, and he was fantastic. Berm did not look very enthused in that bold prediction podcast. Like, Berm looked like he wanted to be, and that's okay. We all have those days, but I just wanted it. Was it just me, or did you notice that as well? That Berm just didn't seem to be real excited about that one.
Yeah, well, it's hard. It's hard to get up for the Youngstown State Penguins. No offense.
And he's up in Michigan too, so he doesn't have the juices flowing like you guys do in Columbus.
Right. That's right. So no, I'm sure he'll be in game form when Saturday comes. I guarantee it.
All right, let me ask you one final thing here. The other thing being looked at under the microscope and scrutinized greatly is the play calling, because, well, Brian Hartline is the offensive coordinator, Ryan Day is the head coach, but the offensive mind. And Ryan even said that it'll probably be a work in progress or a ramp up to Brian. But what did you think of the play calling, and what was the response by Ryan Day when asked about it after game one?
I think Ryan Day, in the end, just did not want to be all that aggressive in that game. Didn't want to put Kyle McCord, I guess, in spots where he could perhaps make some mistakes that make that game more interesting than it needed to be, and probably protect the offensive line a little bit too. So they ran the ball a fair amount. They did not dial up a whole lot of downfield stuff, and the handful of times they did, they missed on it. So like I thought it was a fairly vanilla sort of conservative plan. I still think that plan could have and should have worked better than it did. That was my biggest takeaway is like I don't think the fact that they decided to play that way is why they only scored 23 points. I think that was more of an execution deal than anything. Because you watch some of those drives, they had to kick 2 short field goals. They had a touchdown taken off the board by a penalty, so they probably should have had closer to 40 points in that game. And if they did, I think everyone's feeling really good about this. So it's something to monitor. Like I was of the opinion that Ryan Day should have given up play calling after the Michigan game last year. Then he called a really good game against Georgia, and I started second guessing myself a little bit. And I think Ryan Day, as he went through this process of potentially handing it over to somebody else, I think started to second guess himself too, because there's a young quarterback, because there's a new offensive line. I don't think he wanted everything to be totally new, which I understand on one hand, but I can't help but think that, you know, the best version of Ohio State maybe has Ryan Day giving some of that up just so he can be more of a CEO and get his hands on more of the team and be more in tune with what's happening on both sides of the ball. So we'll see how that develops. I think they want to do a little bit of it in tandem. I think this week is potentially an opportunity to hand a lot of that over to Brian Hartline to see how he performs and handles that. And then kind of go from there and see how it develops over the course of the season. But it was the Ryan Day show for sure against Indiana, and I do think we saw some of his more conservative tendencies come out in a game where he figured they didn't have to be hyper aggressive to win.
We'll get you out of here with this. Again, the Notre Dame game, you're looking ahead here, and that's okay, a few weeks. But do you think by then, I know that Ryan Day, and I appreciate this, is not – he doesn't want to draw any hard lines in the sand and say this is how it's going to be. But we've got to believe, Bill, that come time for Notre Dame in South Bend, he wants to have a pretty good idea of who his signal caller is and consistently be and go with that guy, right? Or no?
Yeah, I think so. That was always my thought. And I honestly don't know what to make of it. Like, I almost feel bad that I don't have a great answer on it, because I said this to Ryan Day on Tuesday when we talked to him. Like, my impression was that you were going to carry this competition into the season and then like pick a guy to go lead you to South Bend. But then Devin Brown didn't play at all against Indiana, and I think because Ryan Day got a little nervous about how that game was going and didn't want to throw in a second quarterback. So I don't know if there's an opportunity now to make that switch prior to the Notre Dame game, because I think you play them both against Youngstown State. They're both most likely going to look really good. Like, how do you use that as a data point? And the same could be true against Western Kentucky, who has an interesting offense, but a pretty bad defense. So I just don't know. I think any opportunity you had to really get a gauge of where both these guys are and who is the best choice to lead you forward has already, prior to Notre Dame, has already passed. So my expectation is that Kyle will continue to start. And if that starts to look shaky, then I think you have a conversation about maybe giving Devin Brown a shot. But I don't know that Devin Brown can play his way to being the starting quarterback over the next 2 weeks, given the caliber of opponent.
All right, follow him on Twitter at BillLandis25. Check him out on Rivals and, of course, the podcast as well. Catch him writing for Dotting the I's along with that great crew, Austin and Berm and himself, along with Doug Maurice. They do great work. Bill, we appreciate it as always, buddy. We'll talk to you again next week ahead of Western Kentucky, and hopefully we're talking about a landslide victory for the Buckeyes against the Penguins. Thank you, bud.
Yep, thank you. See ya.
All right, that is, again, Bill Landis on Twitter. Follow him at BillLandis25. Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I wasn't very excited about the way they played offensive line, especially. That was the area that really bothered me. I thought you saw some things on defense. Sonny Styles, well, this just in, is a freak, and then he went out and played like a freak. Proctor, he brings up a great point, Bill did, about Proctor, is that's kind of his bread and butter, is kind of being that downhill guy. He likes to get his nose dirty. He likes to get in there and stick his helmet in there against the run and make a few pops. What does he do? Has he improved from last year as far as coverage is concerned? We'll have to wait and see. But Buckeyes should. I mean, and I mean this, no disrespect to Youngstown State, but they should house them. And you always say, too, the most improvement is from game 1 to game 2. Nerves are kind of a little less, although this will be obviously the first home game of the season. But we shall see. We shall see. Buckeyes getting set to take on Youngstown State tomorrow at noon. All right, we'll take a break. Coming up at 1 o'clock, Nick Shook's going to join me. We got a programming announcement. We have programming announcements everywhere here at Big Play. So we'll tell you about that coming up at 1 as we continue to preview Browns and the Bengals coming up on Sunday. We got Pick 6 coming your way next hour. But when we come back after this time out, we're going to play a little fair or foul, Mr. Bombastic style. Now, I could be wrong. Bohm, it looks like your energy level is a little bit higher with the extra hour of sleep that you were able to you were able to corral with the schedule change.
It was a useful hour, Chico.
It was a very, very Bohm diplomatic response there. It was a useful hour, Chico.
Useful short.
We'll be back. Jeez, oh man. We'll be back with Fair or Foul next. It is the Chico Borman Show. More to come right here on the Big Play Sports Network. We are back on a little overcast Friday, but that's okay. Pleasant temperatures outside, and of course, well, the reason it's okay is we're just about 48 hours away from kickoff. Week 1, your Browns at home against a very wealthy, or wealthier, he was already wealthy, Joey Burrow. Quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals. Talked to Rapine yesterday, knew it was coming. We thought it was coming anyway. And that if it got to Sunday at kickoff, I thought that was an interesting comment from James yesterday, that if we get to the coin toss on Sunday afternoon at Cleveland Browns Stadium and Burrow doesn't have an extension, that's not going to be a good look for the Bengals. Well, they got it done yesterday. $275 million, $219 million guaranteed. So now he, because he's next in line, is the highest paid player in the history of the NFL. Well-deserved, but he's going to have his hands full against Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward, and company come Sunday. We'll be talking more about that at the top of the hour, and we'll have our Pick 6 segment later in the show as well. But right now it is time for a little fair or foul here on the Chico Borman Show.
Well, Chico, you mentioned the Bengals, so let's kick things off right there. Jamar Chase had some comments that I think some Browns fans,
including Mr. Cribbs,
they are taking a little bit of offense to. So I want to play them for you and get your take on whether fair or foul this is bulletin board material. Let me see what you think.
Game to me, it don't feel no different. I mean, it's just the hooping and hollering about the Cleveland Browns. I was about to call them the Elves, but yeah.
Are you tired of all the talk about Cleveland and how tough it's been for this team?
I don't really hear it. If you ask me, I don't really pay attention to it because it's Cleveland. It's Cleveland. I look forward to the matchup that we have when we're facing them, but other than that, I don't really be caring.
Do you think the elf logo is silly?
It's funny. It's just different, I guess. They feel like a regular game.
So fair or foul, is that bulletin board material? Yeah, put it this way. If Josh Cribbs and he came out in a tweet and said it's bulletin board material, then I'll say it's bulletin board material. Even more so than the Elves, I thought that did you catch the Cleveland is Cleveland? It was like, Cincinnati has been, look, they've resurrected things, and it's Burrow and it's Chase, and congratulations. Let's not act like the Bengals have been the Patriots for 2 decades, though. Like all of a sudden they're looking down their noses at everybody else going, that's Cleveland, and you're going to be good for a while, one would think, and you got a franchise quarterback, and congratulations on that. I'll call that little bulletin board material. I don't know. Wasn't it Juju that said Cleveland is going to Cleveland, or Browns is the Browns? That's what he said. Browns is the Browns. So they like those little sayings. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe a play is made on Jamar Chase and maybe there's a few words exchanged, and if for no other reason, not even the trash talk, not even that line that he mentioned, but because, hey, it's a rivalry, right? They act like it's not. I love that now too. Like, well, I don't really pay attention. It's Cleveland. Right? Okay, all right, we'll see. And look, the Bengals deserve to be the favorite. The Bengals deserve to be the, being talked about in the better light. I get all of it, but you just got to be careful sometimes what you say. Got to be careful.
Honestly, Chico, it didn't seem that bad to me. But I see.
Oh, it's not bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, he definitely tried not. They tried to get him to take shots, and he tried not to.
The Elves thing, I mean, in his mind, again, he's not that old, so in his mind, that's what he sees for the Browns logo.
It's on the field.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, if he's looking for like the, I didn't take much. I thought it was interesting that Cribbs said that. So, Josh Cribbs played the game at a pretty high level, and we, of course, have him here at Big Play. So if Josh says that it's bulletin board, then damn it, it's bulletin board.
Sure. All right. I also, you wished a congratulations to Joe Burrow. I also want to wish a congratulations to D. Solsky, who said he looked really smart telling his coworkers yesterday that it sounds like Burrow's getting a new deal. Congratulations on looking really smart in front of your coworkers, D. Solsky, and thanks for letting us know.
Did he? Okay. Did he actually say like today, or did he just say in general? Because to just say in general,
he left the comment today, but I don't know when. Probably yesterday.
Was it maybe after a year? Because I will say that the reason Rapine was a few minutes late is because he was on a call with somebody that said it's about to go down. So. Yeah, there you go. Outstanding job, D. Solsky.
You heard it here, baby. Thanks for tuning in. And we move on because, Chico, so we had Bill Landis on earlier talking a little Ohio State, or as my grandma would call it, Ohio State.
High. Yeah, some of them do say that. High State.
You gonna go to Ohio State? So the Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Egbuka ranked their top 5 Ohio State wide receivers of all time. So there's only one that really stood out to me. Is like, maybe I'll take a little bit of issue with this, and it's all fun and games, and I kind of understand.
You love these lists.
I think it's interesting,
yeah.
And it's nice to reflect on some of these names. Like for Marvin Harrison Jr., he had from 5 to 1 David Boston, Michael Jenkins, Holy Buckeye, Terry Glenn, Chris Olave, and Chris Carter. I think that's a solid list. Now, Emeka Egbuka, I'll start from 1 to 5 because he also had Chris Carter at 1. Then he has David Boston, Ted Ginn at 3, Brian Hartline at 4, and Chris Olave at 5. Now, fair or foul, he only put Brian Hartline in that list because he's his offensive coordinator.
Fair. And I would guarantee you that he made a point to show to Brian Hartline that, look, Brian Hartline's on my list. So I noticed neither list had Garrett Wilson in there.
Yeah. Santonio Holmes is another name I would throw in there, maybe.
Yeah, Ted Ginn was one of the most explosive.
He was the most exciting player of my childhood.
I don't know if I would say like one of the best wide receivers. I mean, he was an incredible weapon. Special teams, yes, catch the football. Obviously he gets football. I just don't. When I think of great wide receivers in Ohio State history, I don't think of Ted Ginn. Maybe I just think of him, and it's not fair to do so, of just weapon on the field. But yeah, he's one I always enjoyed watching. Terry Glenn, I will say this. Terry Glenn, for those, and he's the late, great Terry Glenn, in the mid-'90s, that dude was a bad, bad man. Like, I think sometimes he gets glossed over just how dominant a season he had in 1995. Like, it was unbelievable. Bolitnikoff Award winner. But, yeah, that's a good list. Chris Carter, by the way, the right answer, Chris Carter is number 1 on both, and he should be.
Yeah, now I think it's also interesting, and you pointed it out, that they both rank Chris Olave over Garrett Wilson. And it makes me wonder, like, because they had that inside perspective, from inside the locker room, from practices, and actually working with these guys closely. And I wonder how much of that maybe is a testament to what Olave does that we don't know about, that makes them, consider him over Garrett.
Here's what I would, this would be my guess, just pure guess. Because if you go back, Bohm, do you remember the interview that Herb Street did for College Game Day? And it was Jackson Smith and Jigba, Garrett Wilson, and Chris Olave. And he basically said, okay, which one of you guys is the best wide receiver in this room? And Garrett Wilson and Olave immediately pointed to Jackson Smith and Jigba. But when they were talking about Wilson, they're talking about Olave. Wilson's kind of known as like a freakish, like he can bend a certain way and make the crazy catch, and where Olave, I think, is the technician, I should say. Like his routes are superb. He's smooth. So that might be where that's coming from. Because I think both of those guys, you're splitting hairs with Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave.
Yeah, you're right. They got it done in different ways, and Olave definitely known all across college football as one of the most refined receivers during his time at Ohio State.
Yep.
All right, Chico. Well, I want to move back to the NFL, and with that also, D. Solsky responded. He said it Thursday. Heard it on Chico. So thanks for listening.
Thank you, D. Solsky. We appreciate you, buddy. We love you. Thanks.
So interestingly, Bill Belichick, per the Daily Mail, is breaking up with his longtime girlfriend. Yeah, drama, right?
It's just not working out.
So apparently,
I want to move on to Isabella. just not really. Yeah, it's not really working out. Don't know what to tell you.
That's pretty good. We need more Bill Belichick impersonations throughout the course of the Chico Borman show.
Belichick.
So anyway, there's a report that the front office is concerned about the breakup, saying that it's been a drawn-out back-and-forth breakup, right? And their fears are that something ugly could come of it. Like, that something might leak
from
this breakup. Yeah, so there's nothing specific. It just says that there's concern about what Linda might post about online after the breakup. Fair or foul, Chico? We could see another New England scandal this year.
So, all right. I mean, I'm going to go there. I know I shouldn't go there, but I'm going to go there right now. Are we, with that being reported, it sounds as though Bill might have a side, and I'm not saying like, domestic violence or anything, but are we saying that like Linda, she's scorned, and so she's going to tell like bedroom secrets on Belichick? And I got news for you. You're all lying if you don't want to hear that, because nobody thinks of Bill Belichick as any kind of, Rico Suave. Like I said, what's on TV? Bill, aren't you in the mood? I kind of wanted to watch this All 22 on Washington. Is that all right with you? Or all right, if we're not going to do that, let's just listen to Bon Jovi. Let's go. I can't. Who? No, Bill's not. I mean, we're not. This isn't to the point where we think that like it's going to interfere with Bill's ability to coach. The dude is so locked in. He's not going to let and I think this girl, he like divorced his wife to get with this girl, if I'm not mistaken, years ago. He's going to be, come on. And who is this reporting it? Out in
the Daily Mail.
What is now? I don't know. I'm not disparaging the Daily Mail. Is the Daily Mail similar to like TMZ, or is it a reputable source?
I mean, 456,000 followers.
Well, I mean, that doesn't mean anything this day. That can just be they like tantalizing headlines and rumors. I'm going to say that it's probably I don't doubt that maybe he's breaking up with her, but I doubt that it's like they're concerned in New England.
Bill, is there anything we should be worried about? Like
Robert Kraft has to, have a meet. Bill, anything I need to be concerned about after your breakup with Linda? He probably just, no. It got you to click on it and many others to click on it. That's why they have 500,000 followers, but I doubt that this is going to be an issue.
All right, Chico, well, let's commence forth. Sticking in the NFL, did you see what Minkah Fitzpatrick did in the Steelers locker room?
Make an interception? Oh, no, in the locker room. No, I didn't.
Yeah, so I saw some Browns fans called it really cheesy, right? I kind of get it. But basically, he had the Steelers logo on the floor in the locker room roped off because he was tired of all the footprints getting on it. And he talked about how it's like the little things like that, like respecting the logo, that matter. He and Patrick Peterson, I forgot that Patrick Peterson joined the Steelers.
Yeah.
And
Desmond King.
Yeah, I know you like that signing. I do too.
I think he's going to be a nice find for them.
Yeah, so not only this, but Minkah and Patrick Peterson collectively decided to make it easier on the laundry guys by separating the bins where players put their like towels, jerseys, and everything.
Jock straps. Right.
Yeah, because prior to them like doing that, it was just you put them all in the same bin, and then like they cleaning staff would have to sort through it.
Nice. It's nice of them.
Yeah. So I guess I want to ask you, fair or foul, whether this is a cheesy action on the part of Minkah Fitzpatrick roping off the locker room, the Steelers logo in the locker room.
I don't know if cheesy would be the right word. I'm okay with it. Here's the thing. I think this is an example of, and I think Minkah's always been, if you go back to his days at Alabama, like he was coming out, he was just a great kid, raised very, very well, good values. And so I'm not surprised to hear, but on top of that, he's got Mike Tomlin as a head coach, and Mike Tomlin cares about stuff like that. Now, I don't think Tomlin said, you know what, I'm tired of these footprints, but I think Minkah Fitzpatrick taking upon himself to do it probably has Mike Tomlin, smiling a little bit, like, yeah, these guys get it. I'm telling you right now, I'm glad there's only a couple days. Well, technically it started last night. But the Steelers open up with the 49ers. The Browns open up with the Bengals. I'm glad there's only a couple of days here before this begins, because I think the longer that I have to talk about the Steelers, without seeing them play and without games being played and wins and losses, the more I'm making myself believe that the Steelers are going to be, I mean, yes, it's all about Kenny Pickett, but like they've got some real, he's got guys to throw to. If the offensive line is better at run blocking, Najee Harris has more holes, but then defensively, people forget TJ Watt missed a bunch last year. So they've got all their guys. Alonzo Highsmith had like 15 sacks. And they add to the secondary. Steelers are going to be a tough football team. So, yeah, I'm a little concerned about them.
Now, this was making the rounds yesterday. Did you see Mac Brown's statement?
Is this why you were smiling?
No, it's not. I decided to maybe save that one for.
You had a stupid comment that you didn't want, like yesterday. Pedophilia.
Not anything remotely close to that.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Mac Jones, I don't know if you saw it. He kind of like laid into the NCAA.
Mac Brown, you mean?
Or Mac? Did I say Mac Jones?
Yeah. Maybe Mac Jones did. Maybe he was pissed off about his time at Alabama.
That's okay. You said Deshaun Watson yesterday instead of someone else. It happens.
Well, at least you have a quick memory there, Bohm. That's good.
No, yeah. I mean, it happens. But so Mac Brown laid into the NCAA because his quarterback, Devontae Walker, was denied eligibility. And he said some very critical things to them. Essentially, I think he also brought up some noteworthy points, like how that's going to impact a player's mental health and how hard that is. And I don't know the story behind it. I don't know.
You got to find out the story behind it.
Like, did he do something wrong? He was just transferring, right?
Right. Well, I don't know all the details. I was hoping that you were going to be able to shed some light.
As far as I know, he was just transferring. I didn't see any issues with him.
Yeah, I'll say this. I never, ever have, nor will I ever err on the side or decide on the side of the NCAA. They never will have the benefit of the doubt for me. So if Mac Brown's saying this kid got screwed, and from the thumbnail sketch version that I've read, it sounds like he has. I mean, we don't know everything, but yeah, I mean, this is sometimes the NCAA. I'm convinced of this. Sometimes the NCAA just feels like they haven't had headlines enough. Like, wow, everybody's talking about Deion, and everybody's talking about Colorado, should they go back to divisions in the Big Ten? What about us as I feel like that's what they do. And this is a group that, like I said, they actually slapped Rick Majerus on the hand, not literally, but figuratively, penalized him or warned him for buying Keith Van Horn a cheeseburger in the airport that he was at after hearing about the death of his father and was getting ready to fly home, and Majerus was taking him to the airport, bought him a burger, and he got reprimanded for it. Like, that's how, I was going to use a word, but that's how stupid the NCAA is. I was going to use another one that starts with an A, but I won't say that on the air. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, moving on from that then, Chico, because there was a funny little video that was tweeted out by Spida, Donovan Mitchell, who been pretty quiet on the Donovan Mitchell front lately. But it was him playing NBA 2K24, the video game, right? And you see him handling with Darius Garland. I think he absolutely breaks John Morant's ankles in this play and then just throws down a slam dunk, like a ridiculous slam dunk. Fair or foul, I should have used the Knicks to troll Cleveland fans. No, I'm just kidding. That's not the question. Fair or foul, is it fair or foul to say that this is kind of on the equivalent of like the Cavs version equivalent of like playing golf with Allen Houston and all of the stuff that we've been seeing about him? I guess the buzz of him talking about New York.
Yeah, I mean, again, I thought all of that was BS. And again, I'm not saying that he doesn't have I've well documented saying that. Does he have a fondness for New York and a deep admiration and respect? Yes, he grew up there. His dad worked for the Mets, and yeah, okay. Do I think this is the end? No, I don't, because I think it's all dumb. He didn't sign an extension. Wow, did you hear when Giannis, he didn't sign his? They want options. They're going to keep them open as long as they can. Everybody does it. But, it's like we got to, oh my gosh, he's golf with Allen Houston. What? Like, no. That was not a good fair foul ball. Not a.
I mainly just wanted to sneak in the Knicks joke.
Yeah, I know. You.
Yeah, but I digress on that one. So earlier in the week, Nick Bosa was signed to a massive extension, which now makes Myles Garrett the 5th highest paid defensive end. Fair or foul, he will be the first highest paid defensive end again in his career.
When is his contract? Is he through 2025 or 20? No, he's not that. 2024.
I'll find out.
Yeah, I don't. I would probably go. Because he already, this is his second contract, so this would be his third contract.
It's a 5-year extension that he signed in 2020. So, yeah, 2025. So, a couple more years. He might still be, like, right in his prime.
He's still going to be dominant. I just don't know, will it be good enough to be the highest paid player in the game? If he is, then if he's playing at that level, the same level he's at now, and he hasn't had a drop-off, he will be. But... yeah, we'll see. That would be, again, his third contract. But yeah, you know what? I'm going to go fair on that. I will say, even if it's for a day, I'll go fair on that.
All right, Chico, that is going to do it for Fair or Foul.
Because you need to get this screen work. It's okay. It's not your fault.
Yeah.
We need Nick Shook is going to be joining us via the telephone line, but apparently, do we not have a telephone line available? Is that what we're looking for right now?
Yeah, it just it hung up on us. I'm just going to call it back.
I hate when I get hung up on. So we'll take a break. We come back. Hopefully we're talking to Nick Shook, and we got a big programming announcement to tell you about. He already knows about it, but we'll tell him about it again. And we've got pick 6, 2 from the college slate, 4 from the NFL slate for this weekend's games. Oh, yeah, it's here, baby. It's here. And it's also here on the Chico Borman Show on the Big Play Sports Network. Don't go anywhere. All righty, welcome back as we roll along on this Friday afternoon, the Chico Borman Show here on the Big Play Sports Network. And as always, great to have you along. Again, if you're just tuning in and you're saying, wait a minute, it's 1 o'clock. Chico, you're usually off the – what's extra? We debuted the Matt Fontana Show earlier today from 9 until 11. I come on. I'll be on noon to 2. And moving forward, a lot going on here at Big Play. We've got a lot going on, certainly with football season. And, well, great timing as we bring in our next guest here on the Chico Borman Show. He's a very familiar face, very familiar name, very familiar scalp, kind of like my scalp. Nick Shook of NFL.com. You also see him on the tube with Andrew Siciliano, among others. He's a rock star. Not as big a rock star as Bone, but he's a rock star. Shook, it is great to have you on as we get ready for Sunday's matchup. We had a game last night. How are you, bud?
I am fantastic, Chico. And you know, the scalp thing, you nailed it. You absolutely nailed it. I'm also very fired up to hear about the debut of the Matt Fontana Show. You know, I have a gift for Matt Fontana that I promised him years ago. It is an autographed photo of his favorite Browns tight end of all time, Steve Hyden. And I'm very much looking forward to giving that to him in person. And why, Chico, am I going to be able to give him that gift in person? Why is that?
Well, okay. First of all, that's a very good segue. But he's going to have to. Boom. Am I right? He's going to have to hang that up. Like he'll have to for his show. He'll have to have an autographed Steve Hyden picture in the background. Does that sound about right, Boom?
Absolutely.
Okay, I agree. All right. Well, yeah, you will be. Nick, you will be able to hand deliver that to Mr. Fontana on Tuesday if you wish. I mean, you can certainly do it any day, but Tuesday if you wish, because, well, drum roll please, we have on Tuesday at noon and every Tuesday at noon throughout the football season here on the Chico Borman Show, I am geeked to tell you that Nick Shook and I are we're going to combine bald heads together, and we're going to do what we're going to call the bald breakdown each Tuesday from noon until 1, where this is going to be about 80% Browns breaking down, what happened. So this Tuesday coming up, we're going to be talking all about the Cincinnati game, hopefully talking about a big W. Now, some of the other nuggets from around the league that you're used to hearing Nick talk about, that is still going to be there as well. What I'm telling you is we're going to have Shook in studio. So nobody's messing with us, Boom, because Shook is, he's jacked. What can you say? He's jacked. Nobody is going to be messing with us from noon until 1. Nick, it is great to have you on board. You and I go way back. Been a big fan, a friend, and I am just I'm really, really excited to bring you on here at Big Play Sports and collaborate with you during the football season.
Yeah, this is a decade in the making, my friend. This is something that I'm very much looking forward to as we break down everything that happened in the Browns' most recent game. Like you said, hopefully that they pull off a W. We'll see. Going to be a tough one, but they're built for it against a Bengals team that they've had a lot of success against at home in recent years, and then we'll be able to go around the league as well. Very much looking forward to it. And you know what? There's nowhere. I can't imagine anywhere else in the United States exist two bald guys who will do it as well as us. I can guarantee that.
The bald breakdown. Beginning
Triple B.
Beginning Tuesday at noon, going from noon to 1 each and every Tuesday. I can't wait. As I've said many times, and you people know this, I've been very fortunate throughout my career to have a pretty, especially during football season, guys that are like my go-tos. And I've always, some people say, well, you have them on a lot during season. Yeah, because I like them. They're good. People trust them. I trust them. So, and along with that comes friendships. Guys like one of Nick's colleagues, Eric Edholm, who I actually knew long before I knew Nick, is still, we still have, a relationship with, and he comes on the show. So I'm really fortunate that these guys have stuck around and been with me through, different moves and different stations. And now I get to bring in, and Nick's the only guy. Boom, Nick is the only guy that of that roster that I worked with and saw him as an intern back when interns were allowed. Nick was one of our interns at 92.3 The Fan, and I even said, he knows this, I'm not just blowing smoke because he's on the air with us. I said, this guy he's got something. I don't know what it is. Maybe a little sarcasm, but he's got something. I knew he was going to be special, and he's done very well in his career. And I'm sure, Nick, that when you worked with me, you said the same thing, like, wow, I feel like I'm in the presence of, like, Michael Jordan or something, right?
Well, I mean, you want to talk about potential. Maybe you saw it in me. What you didn't see the potential for was me being able to retain my hair. Luckily, that was a blessing in disguise. But I will give myself a pat on the back for one thing during that time that we spent together.
Yeah.
And I still have the clips saved somewhere if you need proof. I accurately predicted that LeBron would return to Cleveland 1 year before he did, almost to the day, as I was an intern. And you so graciously allowed me to speak on your show while I was screening calls back there. So from then to now, very, very excited. What a journey it's been, and it's only just getting started.
All right, as far as the Browns are concerned, now that we got the pleasantries out of the way, people want to hear about the Browns. And, I was talking to Matt yesterday when I introduced him, and we were talking about his show that started today as well, Matt Fontana. I said, fans are kind of sick and tired of the same old. I mean, I think they're very appreciative of talent, and because they've certainly had lean years there, but we've all been saying, you've been saying, it's time to get the job done. And what that means this year, it can be a work in progress. But I think for starters, if we're going to say there's a couple things that have to happen, one is Deshaun Watson has to look somewhat. I'm not even saying he has to be 2020, but he has to look very similar to 2020. And then on top of that, I think this team just needs to play clean football games and good football games and not have all the drama and everything else going on with it. What do you think, bud?
When we talk about clean, the defense has to be cleaner than it was at any point in the last couple of years. And you hope that Jim Schwartz's arrival will produce that. You can't guarantee it at this point. Now, his track record suggests that will happen, but you hope that is the product of him coming on the staff and changing this defense, working with all the additions they made in the front seven in the offseason, making it into a group that is good enough to carry its share of the load, because it just hadn't in recent years. And then you hope on the other side of the ball that, yes, Deshaun Watson plays like a quality quarterback, plays like he did in that second half against Washington and not like some of the other games that he played last season. You hope that the offseason and the training camp and everything else spent together is enough to get him, in a position where he can hit the ground running. And with the talent that they've added on that side of the ball, whether it's Elijah Moore or, whether I kind of like even the addition of Jordan Akins, who I think was kind of an under the radar guy in Houston. I think he could end up being a really solid number 2 tight end for the Browns. There's a number of different pieces here that I think could step up and make a big difference in this offense. But more than anything, I need Kevin Stefanski to not get cute when he calls plays, because too often last year he just got too cute, especially in the goal line. I saw a little bit in the preseason against Washington. I need that stuff to be ironed out. If you can get all that to work together and you can get your defense to play solid football under Jim Schwartz, then I think you got a good chance to compete for this division, which is going to be one of the toughest in football. And luckily, maybe unfortunately, depending on how Sunday goes, they get a test right away. They're not having a home game against the Texans, for example, like the Ravens are. They're getting a test right away against the kings of the division, against a quarterback who just got paid yesterday a whole lot of money, more than the money that the Browns gave to Deshaun Watson. They're getting that test right away. It's going to be a good measuring stick. And if they do win this game, then I think, the energy in the city is going to be very high. I'll be back in Cleveland tomorrow night, and I can already feel it from across the country right now, the excitement that's building for this game and for this season. But how you start week one goes such a long way toward determining the tone that surrounds your team. And with so many changes and all the optimism and a little bit of fatigue, a little bit of, look, we've had a good roster the last few years. It's time to produce. With all of that considered, if you're excited for the season, the pressure is on. The pressure is undoubtedly on, and you have to produce early. So if they were able to produce on Sunday and they play a clean game on the defensive side of the ball, they avoid the miscommunications that they had under Joe Woods. And I'll tell you what, it could be a really fun September, maybe a fun October, maybe a fun November, something that the city of Cleveland has not experienced, say, for the pandemic season in quite a long time. And frankly, as somebody who grew up in the area, I think they are more than deserving of such a season.
Well, fatigue is the right word in that situation. Yeah, the last 2 years, and I mean, it goes beyond that too, but certainly the last 2 years, because you go back 2 years ago, and it's coming off that pandemic year that you just referenced, and you're feeling great, and you should feel great, and the Browns fans had nothing to apologize for feeling great, and then it just didn't work out, and you had injuries and quarterback things, and of course last year. So yeah, they are very deserving. But I think the other thing, I'm glad you brought up the defensive side of the ball, Nick, because yes, we're all focused, and nationwide people, for good or bad, are going to be focused on Deshaun Watson and scrutinizing and all that stuff. But the defense is really, when you talk about what Andrew Berry did as far as a checklist, a comprehensive checklist, I might add, on what needed to be done. Now, he did some things on the offense too, but on the defensive side of the ball, hey, we got to shore up front. We can't have teams running the football on us like they have been. And, we want to shore up the back end as well. And then we've got to get a guy in here that knows how to get the attention of guys in that locker room, knows how to get pressure in backfields. And I think, Andrew Berry, look, now it's up to Schwartz and Stefanski and these guys, but I would say Andrew Berry, that comprehensive checklist he had, I think he did very, very well in succeeding as far as getting what he needed to get on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I think he did. The only position that I continue to wonder why they don't value a little bit more is linebacker, just based on how they've approached it in the offseason the last couple of years. And Anthony Walker is a nice veteran. He's also coming off of injury. I mean, I know that, he hasn't had any issues in camp, but there's always a little bit of a lingering concern there when you're coming off of an injury like the one he suffered last year. It's just that they haven't dedicated a ton of resources there, and it's tended to be a position of weakness for them when they get through the season. They have to go sign guys like Reggie Ragland and acquire guys like Deion Jones during the season. So that's my only sticking point with him on the defensive side of the ball. Otherwise, they remade that front seven. Really the front four. And it's funny because when you added Jim Schwartz, you knew, looking at that roster, this was not going to be good enough for what he likes to do up front. And so they went and added a number of different guys that are going to really fit into what Schwartz likes to implement in his defense. I think they did a good job from the front office. Now, the draft, history on both sides of the ball, it's been a little hit or miss. I've been a fan of a lot of his drafts. The Schwartz pick obviously looks bad in hindsight. Cade York looks bad, but you're going to have those misses from time to time. It's just a matter of blending that with what you do in the offseason free agency and being able to put together a competent roster that fits what your coaches like to do. I think they've done that this year. Now, we're not going to see it, of course, until it's tested on the field. But what I really like about this team more than anything, and I just, got the info from Kevin Stefanski's press conference today, is that they are in a position where there's no real worries injury-wise going into the season. You don't have like a Travis Kelce who suffers a hyperextension and then misses the first game, or a Chris Jones misses time because he's still holding out over a contract. Everything seems to be in order with the Browns right now. Denzel Ward, cleared from concussion protocol, going to play on Sunday. Everything, there's no excuses, which is a great thing. There's no worries. It's just now they have to go produce, and it's really tough to do in your first game with the preseason the way it is now. You don't see a ton of starters getting reps, although they did get more reps, I think, in this preseason than they might have gotten in past years. But it's a good feeling right now. The optimism of week one is kind of justified because you don't have any issues where you're like, well, we don't have this guy, or this guy's not going to play. Now it's just about going out there and winning the game.
Nick Shook of NFL.com is joining us here on the Chico Borman Show, and Nick will be joining me here in studio every Tuesday, noon to 1, breaking down the previous week's Browns game and getting you set for the next week and going around the league as far as big news as far as that's concerned. Now, so we'll be breaking down what happened on Sunday. Now let's try to look ahead and see what what maybe the Browns might have in store for the Bengals. And I want to start with the Browns on offense here, Nick, if that's okay. We're focused on Deshaun Watson. There are certainly other stars on the offense, including that guy wearing number 24 who's pretty good. But you look at Cincinnati. I was talking to James Rapine yesterday on the show. They have confidence in the secondary. They have confidence in the new look and some of the new faces back there. But he also said they're expecting the Browns to take some shots and test them early. And I think either way, whether that's the case or not, I think you want to see, and Kevin Stefanski will be taking some shots downfield, if for no other reason, loosen some things up. We didn't see anything in the preseason. That's fine. It was vanilla as can be. I expect them to take some shots, even possibly early in this game on Sunday against some new faces on the defensive side of the ball for the Bengals.
Yeah, nothing's going to get a Browns crowd that has been tailgating since 8 a.m. more excited than seeing a bit of trickery on the first or second play or a deep shot down the field, especially if you hit one to Amari Cooper or I don't know, Donovan Peoples-Jones, maybe Cedric Tillman. But the guy that I'm looking out for more than anything is a guy that has dominated the training camp hype, Elijah Moore, right? You didn't see a lot in the preseason in terms of how they might use him. You did see him in the backfield a little bit. I think what you might get is a little bit of a jet sweep, something to him out of the backfield, some sort of trickery where you get Watson tosses it over and they throw it back to Watson. He throws it to somebody else, something like that kind of just, releases some of the pressure that comes with week one. Let's get adventurous. Let's get excited. Let's pull something up from, out of the bag of tricks. Let's just do it right now. And show that we're going to have a little bit of fun offensively. I do expect some of that. He's done that in the past. I think they have the weapons that are going to make them capable of doing it. But again, it's all going to come down to what Browns fans loved to ride last year, which is how many carries is Nick Chubb going to get? Is he going to get 20 plus? Because if he does, well, most times last year when he got 20 plus carries, they won the game. It's going to be, I think, somewhat similar to what we've seen from the Browns in previous years against the Bengals, which is a defense that is attacking, that is harassing Joe Burrow, that is making him uncomfortable. Myles Garrett's obviously going to figure a lot into that. And then a Browns offense that's going to try to capitalize on that. Now, whether it's by feeding Nick Chubb or using some of their weapons outside in a bit of a creative fashion, we'll see. But I do expect that first drive is going to have a little bit of extra excitement on there. It's going to get the Browns fans really primed for the rest of what should be a 4-quarter battle.
Okay, so you mentioned Nick Chubb, and what I'm hearing a lot of, and I know you're covering the entire NFL, so you're spread a little thin here, but what I'm hearing a lot of around Cleveland and around camp, and we know this, this is about Deshaun Watson from his days in Houston. He loves being out of the shotgun. He also favors empty formations where there's no running back in the backfield. And Kevin Stefanski has said, and others have even said, you're going to see some of that. Do you think that, I don't want to say Chubb's role changes because, he's going to carry the football, but is this one of those where on 3rd and 3 or 3rd and 5, instead of seeing Nick Chubb in the backfield, we might very well see him lined up in the slot or lined up wide? Like it or not, and everybody can have an opinion on it, it feels like that is something that the Browns are going to be doing a lot of in catering to what Deshaun Watson likes to do.
Yeah, if they do go 5 wide, I would expect Chubb to be split out in those settings. Maybe a little bit of Demetric Felton too. It's pretty traditional for if you go 5 wide that one of the running backs ends up lined out wide. The thing is I know it was probably about a few weeks ago where something came across where it was like Nick Chubb's been working on his pass catching ability. I may have even written it up. And I'm in my head, I'm thinking he's been working on catching the ball out of the backfield since 2019. I remember being at Browns camp that year and watching him catching balls religiously out of the backfield, trying to implement him more in the passing game. Nothing about this is really new. It's just that he may not be in the backfield to catch those passes this time. But I think they have other options at the position as well that will allow them to get a little bit creative. And that's fine. I would even like to see if they, lined up Chubb in the slot and they try to run a little tunnel screen to him or something and get him going that way. Now, we're kind of towing the line there, though, where I talked about where, Kevin Stefanski gets a little bit too cute sometimes. I think there is going to need to be some balance between handing Chubb the ball out of the backfield and then trying to use him too much in the passing game, trying to get too creative. They're going to have to find, a little happy ground, between the two to really keep this offense humming. And that's part of, figuring out your rhythm in a week one game. And really my biggest concern, I think, with Kevin Stefanski, who I think overall is a good play caller, just kind of, gets out of sorts from time to time. So he's going to have to try to avoid that and not try to, work in the 5-man sets too often, the empty backfield sets too often. I think that there should be a better balance there too. I'm not quite as concerned about it because this is going to be a hot topic in the offseason. It's been like that with the Browns for months. They're going to open it up. Nick Chubb's not going to be worth having anymore. They should trade him and all that stuff. And obviously they didn't trade him. It was overblown. I think this is a little bit overblown too, but don't be surprised to see it mixed in here or there, because if they really want to take advantage of the talents of their quarterback, who they must believe is now ready to handle that type of responsibility after having an up and down season last year. If they're going to do that, if they're going to capitalize on his abilities, then it is going to include some of that 5-wide. I just don't think it's going to be quite as prevalent as people expect. But again, that's what happens when we go into week one. I think about all the conversation. A lot of it, honestly, is driven by fantasy football. And I think about last night's game against the Lions and the Chiefs, and how there was so much focus on Jahmyr Gibbs and how he's going to be playing this crazy role, and they're going to use him in some unusual ways. And then you didn't see a ton of him, and people were like, well, I guess you guys are just blowing smoke. It's like, no, you have to understand the reality of the situation. That's a tandem backfield with the guy who's a proven bell cow in David Montgomery. They're going to mix in Gibbs to catch the ball out of the backfield.
And no Chris Jones.
Here and there.
I mean, no Chris Jones, so of course you're going to try to, maybe more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. It's all situationally dependent. And I think that's going to be the case, that ties back to the Browns, because I don't think you're going to see 5-wide all the time. I think it is a bit overblown. But again, we're coming out of an offseason in which there's not that much to talk about. And if you are going to, fill time or try to find things to talk about, you're going to talk about this type of thing because it's different. So not going to be as extreme as people anticipate, but we will see it a little bit, I think.
All right, last thing for you, and it's actually, I want to go back to last night's game and just get your thoughts, because, again, for those just tuning in, Nick will be joining me each and every Tuesday at noon, from noon to 1 in studio, the bold, bald breakdown, primarily Browns, but we'll be going around the league with big games, and obviously last night. My biggest takeaway, obviously the Chiefs, if they have Kelsey, if they have Jones, yeah, I like their chances, certainly. But I also don't think it's fair to take anything away from the Lions. I loved what Dan Campbell said after the game, like, hey, what'd you learn about your team? He's like, I didn't learn anything. I just got some verification on what I already knew, that they're ready to go. And that's why those guys love them. I thought the offensive line looked good. I thought Jared Goff looks very comfortable, very confident. Amon-Ra St. Brown is a star. I thought their defense, which is kind of an Achilles heel last year, definitely was an improved unit. Now, again, do they beat Kansas City with those two guys? I don't know, but I definitely don't think that Detroit should be apologizing for anything, and I think Detroit is going to be a team to be reckoned with. I'm not saying Super Bowl, but they're going to be around, no doubt.
In sports, and especially in football, you should never have to apologize for who you're playing against. It's not your fault this team didn't have player X or player Y, okay? And the Lions played the game as it was presented to them. They did a good job. They didn't make mistakes. They played relatively clean football. Jared Goff was impressive at times. He didn't make any big mistakes. He did his job well. And they endured and kind of overcame the disadvantageous setting of playing in Arrowhead, playing in the season opener, playing against a Chiefs team that's coming off of winning a Super Bowl and still is very talented on both sides of the ball. You're right. I mean, I think if Chris Jones is playing defensive tackle, they probably don't get a few of those first downs on the ground that help them kind of ice the game. They probably don't rip off a couple of runs up the middle. Maybe David Montgomery doesn't score that rushing touchdown that puts them ahead. I don't know. We can't say that because they didn't play. So let's not take away from them the fact that they went into a hostile environment as a team that has been the talk of the offseason, but also has a lot of detractors, and they went and did their job. They didn't make any, crushing mistakes. They didn't shoot themselves in the foot. And you know what I love the most about all of it was the fact that they went in there with a chip on their shoulder. They went in there with an attitude. They were talking trash from the start. Having C.J. Gardner-Johnson on that defense certainly helps that, because he talks plenty of trash. But they went in there with an attitude like, we're not just happy to be here. We belong here, and we're going to take it to you. And ultimately, that's what helped them win that game. And why waste time rehashing what could have been when we got the result that we got? And, if these two teams were to meet in the Super Bowl, for example, then we can take time and look back and say, well, they didn't have Kelsey, they didn't have Jones in that game. But let's not take away any of what they did last night in that game. That's a tough place to play, And that's a huge win for them to start their season.
All right, so I promise, last question here, and this is something I think you even talked a little bit about, and I was kind of amazed by it at first. Like I thought what I was watching and what I was hearing couldn't be like right, and that was the Chiefs' Jawan Taylor lined up at right tackle, who was basically like, I don't know. I mean, he's not on the line of scrimmage, which I guess technically he doesn't have to be, but like his helmet at least has to be, up there. He was like getting a head start because, well, Aiden Hutchinson's pretty damn good. And Terry McAulay, like this wasn't just Mike Borman at his house going, my God, Terry McAulay's like, why aren't they flagging this? The NFL, what's their response to that? That was horrible last night, and it was like over and over and over again.
Well, I thought it was funny that they waited until the last possible moment in the biggest moment in the game,
right,
to finally get him for. Not only was he deep and not on the line of scrimmage, but he was committing false starts repeatedly.
Yeah.
And this is a trend I've seen in football in recent years, at the college and the pro level. I am noticing tackles, and especially left tackles, but tackles who are facing premier edge rushers, they do get a little bit of an early start. And I watch it and think to my head, that was a false start. They didn't flag. Well, that was a false start. Taylor was egregious last night with how quickly he was getting off. And it wasn't until it was so blatant that you could no longer ignore it that they threw a flag and penalized him for it. It just happened to come in the worst time in the game. What's going to happen, if you really want this corrected, is we're never going to hear about it. What's going to happen is Leafs can contact the Chiefs. They're going to talk to the Chiefs coach and say, look, he needs to be close to the line. And then we'll see if he ends up adjusting. And if he doesn't, officials will be made aware of it into their next game, and they'll pay close attention to it. They'll keep a really close eye on it, because one thing the league doesn't like is for players to flout the rules and have people on TV talk about it and then not have the rule book enforced, especially on a primetime stage. So I don't think that you'll be seeing it very often. Now, there was, of course, a good reason for why he was playing that way, and it was because he was facing Aiden Hutchinson for much of that game. It was really funny, too, and I think the Chiefs will want to clean it up, too, because he was like an obvious tell based on where he was lining up. I'm sitting there watching with my fiance last night, and I'm going, you see how deep he is off the line right now? This is a pass play. Next play, he's tired of the line. This is a run play. Like, it was really obvious when they were running and when they were passing the ball, no matter the situation, just based on his alignment. And how deep he was in his stance and in his splits. So I think that it'll get addressed, and we'll never hear about it, and you'll only be able to tell by watching the next Chiefs game. And if it's not addressed, or if he doesn't, kind of comply, then you'll see more penalties for it.
To your point that you've seen this a little bit, I heard an interview, and I can't remember where it was. I think it was this morning. And somebody said that they heard from somebody, anonymously with the league, that said, yeah, because defensive ends and edge rushers have become so, Myles Garrett like, Nick Bosa like, so uber athletic, Aiden Hutchinson, that they are trying to give the offensive linemen a little bit, the tackles, whatever, a little bit of an edge. But no, I mean, that's not how it works. I mean, you get, and I know it's all about protecting the quarterback, things like that, but you got to be better. You got to figure out a way to block them. You got to be faster and bigger and stronger yourself. It's not the edge rusher's fault that they're all of a sudden, super athletic and super fast. If that is what they're doing, that's pathetic. If that's something that's kind of well known, and this is how they're combating it. I think it's awful if it is true.
Well, yeah. I mean, the funny thing is I was watching Taylor's pass sets last night, and it's not like he's bad. Like, I was actually really impressed by how quickly he was setting and then resetting. Quick off the line, setting, ready to take on the rush. It's not like he necessarily needed to do that. But it's also, offensive line is a position that is so often overlooked because they don't touch the ball and it's not glamorous. But there are so many fine details that go into playing it, whether it's the width of your splits, the depth of where you line up and how you want to drop against the guy. I was talking to Josh McCown for this piece I wrote on Joe Thomas to have a Hall of Fame this year about how one time Josh got sacked and it was from his blind side. Joe Thomas was his blocker over there. And I know I'm going to go a little bit long on this, but this is worthwhile.
Yeah.
And as he got sacked, he looked back and said, wow, that came from Joe's side. What happened when he went over to Joe? And Joe said, you were at 10 yards in your pass drop. And he goes, no, I wasn't. I was at 9.5. He goes, I took a 9.5 yard dropped in my pass protection and you were sacked, which tells me that you were at 10 yards. So Josh, said, I'm pretty sure it was at 9.5. And then they go check the film the next day. And sure enough, that play comes up. Josh's back foot, 10 yards.
Joe knows.
And he looks at Joe and he's like, I'm sorry. He knew right then and there. So like the minutia of this is important. And if you really pay close attention, you can see how different guys play the position differently. And this is Juwan Taylor playing right tackle against a very good edge rusher. He knows he's got to prepare to play, a specific way to stop. And that's how he approached it. So I think there is some room for leeway. Like there is, because you do have to protect the guys. But you know what? It's also on the offense to bring in a tight end or a running back and chip him. I think at one point they had Marquez Valdez-Scantling hit him as he was going out on a route just to disrupt that pass rush. It's on you to do that. This is what Myles Garrett faces all the time. I had a buddy text me last night. He's like, why is Myles Garrett, why do these other guys like Aiden Hutchinson look so much better than Myles Garrett? And I said, because Aiden Hutchinson isn't getting double teamed. He's not getting chipped. He's in a one-on-one situation. They chip and double Myles Garrett on every play in every game. And I think that is the offensive responsibility, is to dedicate additional resources to stop those guys, not the officials giving them a little bit more leeway. So I think that basically Taylor pushed the envelope to the point where he can't go any further. And if anything, you'll see it kind of come back toward the middle a little bit more going forward.
He will join me in studio beginning this Tuesday, and it'll be every Tuesday, beginning at noon here at Big Play Sports, where we broadcast at Burke Lakefront Airport. He is Nick Shook. We're going to call the segment the Bold Bald Breakdown. And, yep, we'll be breaking down the Browns game and going around the league with our buddy, NFL.com's Nick Shook. Nick, I can't wait. Take it another step here, and it's going to be a lot of fun working with you, buddy. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. I am super pumped for it. Can't wait to do it. We'll see everybody on Tuesday.
All right. Sounds good, pal. That is, again, Nick Shook joining us. And, he was talking about, I was talking to him off the air. He might be making an appearance Sunday. Don't forget, Sunday, not just the game. We're talking about tailgating. We're talking about the Big Play tailgate. We're talking about the Big Play game day. And we're going to be here at Burke Lakefront Airport, set up right out there, as people can, if they can't see, but right in front of the airport, right in front of the doors there. And it's just going to be a 2-hour party. We're going to be doing a show. We're going to be talking to, among others, hopefully Josh Cribbs and Hanford Dixon. And we have a guest picker. It's going to be like a college game day scene. But we'll be breaking things down, not only the game, going around the AFC North, but it is going to be so much fun and the place to be. And if you're going to the game, well, yeah, just stop on by on your way. If you want to stay up and hang around and watch the game, you can certainly do that. But it is going to be awesome coming up on Sundays, beginning this Sunday at 10 a.m. All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, a segment that I do every year during the football season, and we're going to do it again for week 1. We're going to have a little bit of dressing up for it in the coming weeks, which we'll tell you about. But when we come back, it's Pick 6, 2 from the college slate. There's one very big college game this weekend, and 4 from the NFL slate. Does not include the Browns and the Bengals, because we'll be making those picks on Sunday. So that is on the way. It is the Chico Borman Show. More to come right here on the Big Play Sports Network. All righty, welcome back as we wind it down on this Friday afternoon. But, man, the weekend just getting started, and we are just counting down. The Browns-Bengals, Sunday, 1 p.m., Cleveland Browns Stadium. But for all intents and purposes and our purposes and your purposes, it really gets underway at 10 a.m. And if you want to get here a little early at Burke Lakefront Airport, check things out. Got a nice little spread here, and guys have been working very hard getting this thing together, and you're going to be the beneficiaries coming up on Sunday. We'll be doing the tailgate 10 until noon, and then the Browns and the Bengals at 1 o'clock. All right, so I said we're going to be doing Pick 6 again this year with our friends at Tipico. Tipico lets you bet on all the biggest sporting events all year. Boom. Major League Baseball, college football, all that. But let's be honest. When we really get juiced up, what's it for? It's the NFL season. With Tipico, you can bet traditional lines. You can bet parlays, spreads and totals, so many player props. I mean, all of it. Tipico does all kinds of great promos. I mean, you've heard us talk about it, right? Like during the baseball season, then, before football season, Nick Chubb, we're going to boost Nick Chubb's rushing total, or they're doing that all season. So basically between that and the weekly big play boost, you're going to get better odds on some of your favorite bets each week, especially for our Cleveland sports teams. Be sure to sign up with our show link. Again, it's Big Play Chico 150. That's Big Play Chico 150 to get 150. It's
Chico 150. I apologize. I mixed them up. There's Big Play 150 and there's Chico 150.
Come on, boom. All right, so be sure to sign up with our show link, which is Chico 150, to get $150 of free bets on us with a $50 deposit. Must be 21 years old. Gambling problem. If you have one, call 1-800-GAMBLER. So we're going to be doing Pick 6 every Friday with our friends at Tipico, and let's get her started right now. This is going to be 2 from the college slate, always, 4 from the NFL slate. 2 + 4 = 6. Pick 6. Okay, got it. We will not have the Browns in these picks because we're going to be making predictions on Sundays. We may change that up, but for right now, we're not going to do that. All right, so boom, here we go. We start with the college slate. Biggest game this weekend in college football happening in Tuscaloosa. Is Sarkisian and Quinn Ewers for real? We keep hearing Texas is coming, and Texas, they could really, really make a statement. They could really say, okay, now we're really here if they can get a win in Tuscaloosa against Alabama. Milroe, their new quarterback. Bama is favored by 7. Favored by 7. Who you got, Boom? Who you got?
Yeah, Chico, I don't want to bet against the Bama machine. I have questions about what their quarterback play is going to be like. I think that they always have a lot of turnover, and they always are still bringing in the top recruits. So I'm going to take Bama in that one. I don't trust Sark enough to pull off an upset like that.
Here's what I would say. It really comes down to, sometimes this isn't the case, but in this case, for me, it is. If this game is in Austin, I'm going Texas. This game is in Tuscaloosa, I'm going with Bama laying the 7 points. All right, the other one. He is the talk of college football. You believe now? You believe now? Wait. This is my house. It's a house that I built. Deion Primetime Sanders. Coach Prime.
We coming.
Now we already here. 22nd team in the country after 1 week in that big upset of TCU. And yes, TCU was missing a lot of guys from last year's national. But that was what, a 20. Well, what was the spread in that game? Was it in the 20s? It was big. It wasn't as big as I think Texas Texas State knocking off Baylor, but it was a big – they were big underdogs. And, well, they won. And now they're at home. They go back home to Boulder. This used to be a huge rivalry back in the day. Nebraska and Colorado. Nebraska also under a new coach, and Matt Rule didn't go so well week 1 against Minnesota. The Colorado Buffaloes under coach Prime Time is 3-point favorites at home. Boom. 22nd ranked Colorado laying 3 against Nebraska. Who you got?
No question. I'm hammering Colorado on that one. I think they I feel like that's easy money. I don't have very high expectations for Nebraska just yet. I think Matt Rule, I love the hire. I think it's going to take some time for him to right that ship.
I think Colorado wins this game, but Nebraska getting 3 I'm going to take. And here's my reasoning. It's not that I'm not buying in for Deion. I don't want to hear Deion. What, you don't believe? You don't believe? I do believe. What I also believe is that it is impossible in sports, certainly in football, at that level to maintain a high 1 week to the next. They had it going into that game last week against TCU, and then they went out and beat TCU, and yet it's tough to keep your guys up. I don't care who you are. I don't care what level it is. It is tough to maintain that high and not suffer that, just that lull. Now, I know Nebraska, it's still a big game, but it's certainly not like it was years ago. I think Nebraska is going to make this one very tight. I'm going to say that Nebraska loses by a couple of points. So Colorado wins, but they do not cover the 3-point spread. All right. Now, that's 2 from the college slate, Bohm. Now we got 4 from the NFL. And I tried to pick as many good ones as I could. So the week 1 slate, 49ers at Steelers. The Steelers are at home. They're at whatever it's called now. It used to be Three Rivers, then it used to be Heinz Field. Now Acrisure, I think is the name of it. The Steelers are getting 2.5 points at home against the San Francisco 49ers. And yes, Nick Bosa, signed to that tidy new deal, is going to play. I think this is going to be a great game. You say Kenny Pickett. Many people are saying he might take that next step, and it might not be this week, though, because, well, you got San Francisco's defense, you've got Nick Bosa, but Kenny Pickett, not so much Kenny Pickett, the Steelers' defense at home, getting 2.5. Boom, I think the Steelers are going to win this game outright. Maybe I'm, way, way off base here, but I think the Steelers getting 2.5, but I think they beat the 49ers outright at home at Acrisure Stadium.
I think that's kind of a bold prediction. I'm inclined to pick the 49ers in this one, and while Brock Purdy, I need to see a second year of him doing what he was able to do in that 49er offense. I have even greater questions about Kenny Pickens, and I think that Steeler defense is
throwing to George Pickens, though. So you were right.
I'm just off my game today, Chico.
It's all right, buddy.
My mind is a little cloudy today. I think
with a chance of showers.
Yes, it is. It might be raining in my mind. So I have big questions about Kenny Pickett. I almost had to think about it again. I do love George Pickens, though, but I'm going to take the 49ers in this one. And okay. I am very curious to see how young Kenny does.
Yeah, I think it could be a long day for him. I don't think he just comes right out of the gate, right out of the chute, and starts firing it all over the place. And the other thing that I wonder with Pittsburgh, you say, well, he's got Najee Harris back there. Yeah, but, we still need to see. They've had a makeover on the offensive line. They had to have one.
Much needed.
But, what will it do against one of the best defensive lines and some of the best linebackers when you're talking about Fred Warner and company? I think this is one where, yeah, it's easy to say you need to see it, but I think they're going to do just enough. I'm going to say the Steelers in an upset week 1. They win at home outright against the 49ers. All right, next one. Looking forward to this one, and this one there could be a lot of points scored in this game. The Miami Dolphins in L.A. against Justin Herbert and the Chargers. Chargers perennial, just every year disappointing, right? Like you think this is going to be the year. Well, this isn't the year. Will this be the year? The Chargers are 3-point favorites. Kellen Moore is now calling the offense for the Chargers. And seemingly Justin Herbert, fresh new contract, fresh new scheme. They're going to be taking shots downfield. They've got guys to catch those in Keenan Allen and Mike Williams and company. Also some young guys in Quentin Johnston, Josh Palmer. Chargers 3-point favorites at home. Boy, this is tough. Chargers defense at times has melted down. I love Derwin James in the secondary. Yeah, I'm going to take the Chargers to cover that. Again, it's the home field. I do think the Chargers are going to hit on some big plays. That Miami defense is still pretty good, and I think Tua's going to have a good day too. I think Tua and Tyreek and Jalen Waddle and even Raheem Mostert in the backfield are going to have some pretty decent games, but I feel like this one in a high-scoring affair, Justin Herbert and the Chargers able to squeak one out.
I'm with you, Chico. I love that Miami Dolphins offense. I mean, the pieces that Tua has. But my biggest question with them is, I guess, okay, maybe how good what kind of running back production can you get in that room without Jeff Wilson currently hurt, and then like Raheem Mostert, like you said, and that kind of committee that they're going to be having down there. But also my biggest questions surround Tua. And not just, like health concerns, because it's only week 1. Like, hopefully nothing like that happens so soon. But I think that his ability to finish games compared to Herbert, I just love Herbert. Like, he rises to the occasion in any time that I've
You're
watched.
saying finishing the game, like literally finishing the game, or like
in terms of the clutch
finishing. Okay.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I love Herbert's ability late in games to close them out. I mean, we've seen it firsthand when he's done it against the Browns, and now some of it has been courtesy of some bad calls. But I think Herbert can make all the big throws in the big moments.
I'll tell you what, I am looking. This is a game that I'm circling it right now. I think we're going to be talking on Monday and then on Tuesday with my boy Nick. I think we're going to be talking about the Dolphins-Chargers as one of the most entertaining games of the weekend.
I was going to say that's probably the most high-scoring game of the weekend, just on paper.
Back and forth, 2 quarterbacks.
Wonder what the over/under is on that one.
It's a good question. Let me hang on a second. I think I can. I think I've got that for you. Hold on. It looks like Chargers, Miami. Okay, where are they hiding this?
Next time you need to look something up, I can just do my Art Matrano routine.
There it is. 51 is the over/under.
Okay. I wonder how that compares to other games, but I won't.
Well, the next game is the Eagles-Patriots, and that one's at 45. So Philly at New England, the Patriots are getting, and they should be getting, 4 points. I feel like this one should be more. Like, the Patriots are not
Is that the Belichick factor?
I think the Belichick factor and the Foxborough factor and all of that sort of thing. But Philly is dominant in a lot of areas. Jalen Hurts could be an MVP. I think the guy to watch out for, and he's a guy that I admittedly bought some stock in fantasy. I think Devontae Smith is going to overtake A.J. Brown as the number 1 guy in Philly.
Wow.
Yeah. I think Devontae Smith, from a target standpoint, remember EK said that's big, target. He actually out-targeted him from like week 3 on last year. And if you look at the last 6 or 7 games, it was the Devontae Smith show along with Jalen Hurts. So I just feel like the Eagles are so much better Is it the Belichick factor and the Belichick factor at Foxborough? Maybe. But, man, I'm taking the Eagles all day. I think even Patriots getting 4, I think they should be getting more than that. So I'll take the Eagles on the road.
Yeah, I mean, the Eagles are just, like, they're so good. And while I like Mac Jones, I think that there's still a lot that needs to be proven from him. And it's kind of been, he exceeded my expectations as far as what he's been able to do so far. Like, he came in right away and was making an impact.
Yep.
But that being said, I mean, Jalen Hurts is gonna you hinted on it. He's gonna be an MVP contender, and that's a loaded offense, and they're not afraid to go on the road. They're fresh off a playoff run. Now, that being said, that Super Bowl hangover, I wonder how real of a thing that'll be for Philly. Because it does happen. Now, Patrick Mahomes has defied it.
Are you saying in terms of like having the season play out that long, or when? Because like
just teams who lose in the Super Bowl historically have had either rough starts or rough seasons overall to follow.
Okay.
That being said, I'm still going to go with Philly because I'm just going to assume that even if they do have a Super Bowl hangover, they're not going to become quickly one of the lesser teams in the league. Okay,
last one in our pick 6. Again, brought to you by our friends at Tipico. Check it out. Chico 150 is that code word. Chico 150. Bills at Jets. The Jets are getting 2.5 points. You know, Bills, hey, the expectations have been there for a while. The Jets, all of a sudden, you enter Aaron Rodgers into the equation. Garrett Wilson, Bohm's boy, my boy too. I like Garrett Wilson. An ascending defense. Sauce Gardner, maybe the best corner in football. And that's gonna be a nice matchup. Sauce Gardner on Stephon Diggs. That's gonna be must-see TV. I still think I feel like the Bills right now, and part of it is similar to the Browns, not as much, but in terms of like expectations and they disappointed. I feel like people are kind of like, yeah, are the Bills actually going to get it done? I think they do. I think they're going to the Super Bowl this year. I think they feel a little jilted right now. I think they've got a little chip on their shoulder. Like, okay, people are kind of doubting us now because we haven't, gotten out of the divisional round. And I like the Bills all season. I like the Bills more than 2.5 points. I think they win handily. I'll say like 10 points against the Jets on Monday Night Football.
I am not as high on the Bills as some others are. Now, I still think they're a very good team, and I think I'm pretty confident they'll probably make the playoffs this year. But that being said, my one question with the New York Jets right now is their offensive line and being able to protect Rodgers. But I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt here in week 1, and hopefully that doesn't get totally exposed. And I'm going to take the Jets because I think Rodgers has all the tools at his disposal. If he gets just enough time to get it off, he's going to be throwing it all over the yard.
All right, I like it. So the last game of that slate, Bohm and I split. I'm taking the Bills. He's taking the Jets. Man, folks, it has been such a fun week. It's only gonna get better from here. That's what's great. Starting on Monday, of course, Matt Fontana back 9 to 11. He debuted, did a great job this morning. I'll be back with you at noon to 2 on Monday, recapping, of course, the Browns and the Bengals. But don't forget, coming up this Sunday, right here where we're at Burke Lakefront Airport, the place to be, 10 a.m. to noon, we've got the Big Play party, the Big Play tailgate party here at Burke, and you're all invited. We're going to be doing the show, but there's going to be celebrity guests. You might see Hanford. You might see Josh Cribbs. You're going to get some food and drink. You're going to get some music, some prizes, contests, and a very special guest picker is going to be in attendance as well. So get on up here early. Yeah, it all starts for real Sunday at 1 o'clock, but be here at 10 at Burke Lakefront Airport. Thanks to Nick Shook and also Bill Landis for joining us here today. Thanks to Michael Bohm, doing great work as always. I am Mike Chico Borman. I will talk to you again on Sunday, beginning at 10 a.m., and I cannot wait to see you up here as the Browns get ready for the Bengals. So until then, Make it a great weekend. Try to get some sleep because I know it's very difficult when you're this excited. Try to get some sleep. Try to take care of yourselves. And then, damn it, be ready to roar coming up on Sunday. Until then, make it a great weekend, everybody. See you.